So what should we do next? The New Year's video? New Year's, oh. Good cookies. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Apple and Orange line and to another video. And this is a special video as it's the first video of 2022 pop. Actually, I tried to pull a Christmas cracker or a New Year's cracker and it didn't pop. So anyway, the cool thing though is I got this little sparkly notepad so I can keep all my notes. It's better than the legal pad that I use, so it's much smaller, so I won't write as many notes and I won't make as long of videos. And then I think it had a joke in there too. And it had a crown. GFW trains were wearing their crowns on Friday night during their live stream, which was really cool. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the live stream with their family, and their Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve live streams were awesome. And what lies at the bottom of the sea and shivers? A nervous wreck. Okay. So, I wanted to just do a quick New Year's video. I thought about doing this. I was going to try to do it on about the 30th. I was going to do it on the 31st. I was going to try to knock one out and put it on by the 31st. And then I was going to do it on the 1st. And it wasn't so much that I was procrastinating, but I do like to, every year I take a little time at New Year's and kind of over the holiday weekend or whenever the holiday falls, but usually when we have days off, I like to just kind of reflect on the past year, what I thought I was going to do that year, and think about what I'm going to do this coming year, now that we're in the year. We're halfway into January, but anyway, so Chris's Trains and Things, Chris's Trains and Things had a good video the other day, last week, leading into the New Year's about what you're thankful for. And, and I think particularly related to the hobby, it would be, I think, a pretty obvious answer that it's my parents and my grandparents and really my great-grandparents as well, who I never met, but the last of my great-grandparents died just before I was born. And actually, I only knew my mom's mom and my dad's dad, and then I had my mom and dad up until recently. So the thing I'm thankful about is, in terms of the hobby, is that all of my great-grandparents were involved in the railroad industry in some way, shape, or form. Back in those days, 150 years ago, that's what people did. I mean, the trains were everything. They were almost everything we use: cars, trucks, planes. It was all done by train, and the world was a lot smaller then. But I'm thankful for that. And then, of course, my dad was really the impetus of getting me into trains. A lot of things were centered around trains when I was very young. We had an HL layout. It was on I think it was about a 4x8 sheet of plywood that was had a mountain on it, and it had several tracks, several different main lines going around, and then it had all the little sidings and things like that. But that was where it started. I never really did too much with that because I was pretty young, and when I was about 6, I got my first Lionel train set, the New York Central Empire State Express, for Christmas, just after I turned 6, I think. So that's kind of where we transitioned. But we would always go look at trains, and we rode trains. We took Amtrak and stuff like that. But we traveled around Europe by train, and then I also went after college. I went and backpacked in Europe and practically lived on the trains. My buddy and I that I went with we would spend every 2 or 3 nights, we would just sleep on a train en route to our next destination, and we did not pay for the sleeper car or the sleeper suite or anything. We just would sleep on the train. And so that was fun. But so I'm really thankful for my dad. He was really the impetus, but also my mom. She she traveled by train as a girl. My mom made my first layout. My dad laid it out, and it was on a 4x8 sheet of plywood. That was my first Lionel set. We may have had one on plywood a little bit before that, but we the first real one I had was this one that my dad laid it out, and it was covered in felt, and my mom did all the felt, and I think that was her idea, and it was kind of a unique, kind of a really cool way to do a layout. It was pretty nice, and all the land areas were green or brown and stuff like that, and then there was the roads were black going through the layout under the track, and it was black felt, and then there were like yellow dashed lines on the road, and there were several roads that kind of one went this way and one went the other way, and then there was a mountain, and the mountain was kind of like this tree skirt here where the it poofed up out of the one side off the left side of the layout, and so my dad cut a hole in the plywood, and then they put the felt underneath, and then it came up and poofed up, and you could change the shape of the mountain and stuff, but the mountain was like brown, and I think it had red lava or snow on top, and some red lava, because we used to go to Hawaii and we'd see the lava coming down the mountain at night, and so that kind of had that. And then there was a lake on the other side. There was a bridge that crossed over like the lake and a river, and that was all blue felt, and it was my dad cut with a jigsaw. He cut out the plywood, and then they applied the felt, pulled it tight underneath the plywood board, and so when you looked across, you'd see the land came down to the lake, and then there was this blue felt water that went across. So it was really cool. And then I had like the whistle train station and stuff on there, and then we eventually dismantled that and built a different layout. But that was pretty cool. So my mom did that, and she was part of buying trains for me. She would go to the train store. A lot of times she would go shopping for clothes or something. My dad and I would go to the train store, or the train department at the department store. But that was Fredericks in downtown Seattle. We would do that, and then. But anyway, so I would be thankful for definitely my parents, grandparents, and my family that were in railroading, but also that helped me in this hobby when I was a kid. And my grandma, I got to run trains with my grandfather, my dad's dad, and he was a steam engineer, so he knew a lot about how that worked. And I got to do that as a kid a few times. We mostly went to my grandfather's house in Seattle, but he came over a few times and we got to do that. So at least I had, got that chance. And then my grandmother, she would come stay with us sometimes when my parents traveled, and she lived in Canada, and she would come down and stay with us. And she would sit with me just like this on a stool right next to where we had all the transformers and the controls and the switches and buttons and everything. And she learned how to do it. And she would sit there and we would run trains, and she would tell me all these great stories about all the trains she took. And she traveled a lot in her lifetime all over the world. And of course, as a younger person, trains were the only mode of transportation, trains and ships. And so that's what she did. And then in those days, and then even in later days, she still took train trips, and she never drove. So she either, she would take a train to Seattle and we would go pick her up, or sometimes she would take a bus, but she never learned to drive, never had a car. My grandfather drove, and he did all that. But my grandma, she had no use she didn't need a car. And even her family, her dad and my great grandfather in Scotland, they never had cars or drove, or they just took the trains. They walked in their small town where they lived, and they took the trains anywhere else they needed to go. So I'm thankful for that, and that both that history, but also that support that I had from them when I was a kid. So that was a good topic by Chris's Trains and Things. And then kind of looking back at the last year, both kind of personal and train wise, I pulled out the trains and started messing around with them and got excited about it again. So going forward, I want to build a layout. I'm going to be moving, so as soon as I move and get settled and all that, I'll set up a layout. I have this idea of a kind of a smaller corner layout. It could be, it could be 4x8 and 4x8 plus maybe one other side would have a kind of a little peninsula, something smaller, maybe 2 feet by 4 feet or something coming out. So there's like a little siding or something, but I want to have scenery. I really like OG on GFW trains. His train layout tells the story of his life and his wife's life and their family, and that's kind of always been my idea for a layout, is to kind of tell it's kind of the soundtrack of my life through trains. And so the soundtrack of my life, but the so that's my idea on that. And then this past year, my mom passed away just before the holidays last year, and so I was dealing with that and still dealing with the state business and all that. I'm in charge of that, and so going through all that is been it's been okay. It's just been a lot to deal with in a year, and so I'm looking forward to the next year of having all that wrapped up and getting on with things. But my dad passed away 6 years ago, and my mom about a year ago. And so as they were getting older and starting to have, little health issues and stuff, I'm kind of like the kid that lives in my hometown and help them out and stuff, and which is great. I moved back here about 20 some years ago and started a business, and I had some flexibility and ability to help them and take time, if I needed to take half a day off to go to a doctor's appointment or something. I was always happy to do that. And so I'm thankful for all that. And I was with both of them when they passed away, and I'm grateful for that. Going forward, I wasn't really able to travel for several years, and I used to travel a lot, and that was one of my favorite things to do. And I've traveled by train, around the world and stuff. So I wanted to get back into that. Now COVID is kind of raining on that parade right now, but I'd planned to try to go to Europe this past summer. I'm looking at this coming summer, but I'm not sure how it's going to work. One of my interests is following Formula One. And another great thing that happened this past year was just this past month was Max Verstappen with Red Bull, number 33, won the World Drivers' Championship. And it was a crazy season in Formula One. It was a crazy last race. It was a crazy last lap and wild and all kinds of ups and downs throughout the year. And it was really exciting and fun. And the last race and the last lap were both exciting. And so I'm hoping to go over. I'd like to go to the Austria Grand Prix, and then also go about 2 weeks later. They have the British Grand Prix, so that would give me time to travel around Europe by train and maybe do the Channel, which I've never done, and then go over to England, go to the British Grand Prix, and then go up to Scotland and see family up there. I've got family still in my grandma's hometown in Scotland, and just across the Irish Sea in Belfast in Northern Ireland. I've got some family. Last year I did where some of my dad's grandparents and great-grandparents had followed the trains and the railroad out, building railroads and so on out to Texas. Some of them came from like the Midwest, Illinois, and some of them started in Kentucky, and some were down in Tennessee and Mississippi, and they all kind of worked their way across the country as the railroad and everybody was moving west. They all eventually wound up in Texas, and that's how all the families met there. And both my dad's parents' families all knew each other there, and so that was kind of how that all happened. And so this past year I was able to go visit their hometown, which is near Austin, and it's on kind of on the Great Northern Railroad there. And so got to go check that out, and I'll do a video on all of that at some point. But so that was cool to see and go out and check that out again. I've been down there before, but it's been a long time, and so it was really fun. And I also got to go check out the Formula One, the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, and so I was glad to do that last year. That was one of my goals for the year. A couple other things I wanted to do outside of railroading was my other big interest is maybe even bigger is aviation, and so I got to go to the OGauge Air Venture Big Air Show. It's the world's largest air show, in Oshkosh and Wisconsin, and so got to do that. And I thought I'd go for maybe 3 or 4 days. I just figured I'd stay as long as I could stand it, and I wound up staying 8 days. And I got there early and stayed. I was about one of the last people to leave, and I just had the best time. I met so many people, and it's probably like going to a train show where you meet people who have everybody's there for the same reason and the same love and the same interest of the hobby or the activity, but there's um, there's so many different facets to it. It's like people that collect tin plate, pre-war, post-war, modern, MPC, whatever, and steam or diesel or all the legacy and whatever people are into. Everybody's got their thing. Some people are looking for collectibles, and some people are looking for just stuff to have fun with. And the air show was the same way. It was every facet of aviation, from military or former military people to people that build their own planes to people that fly, corporate or airlines and jets, and little low and slow puddle jumpers and everything in between. So it was just really fun meeting people and learning about like what facet they're into, what part of the hobby or the aviation that they're really into. So it was a really cool time. I got to do some other traveling. I went to Montana. I used to go there a lot, and I hadn't been there for a while, probably 10 years. And I think all of America was in Montana this summer. It was smokier here than it was there, and it's probably snowier here than it is there. But the anyway, it was awesome. It was great. And then I also went to Colorado and Utah, and I kind of explored there. I've been to those places, but never really explored the mountains much. So I had a great time in Colorado up in the Rockies, and that was really cool. And one thing I wanted to do that didn't work out this year was to take one of the tourist trains up in the Colorado Rockies, and I was going to try to do one up in Steamboat, but it just didn't work out on my schedule, and so. But I got all the information. I got brochures and stuff on all those, and so that's one of my goals coming up this year, especially, but in future years too, is to go around and do some of the steam trains around the country and elsewhere too, if I can, anywhere around the world. There's one in Scotland I want to do, and up in the Highlands, and so that's all on my list of things to do. And then the other thing, I'm looking at moving, and so kind of the apple orange thing, as I got to spend some time in Florida this past year and look around, look for places I might want to live there. I'm kind of looking at Texas, Florida, some other, I've got an open mind right now, other places, but originally my channel was called Apple and Spud Line, because I was going to move to Idaho about 10 years ago, and then that didn't happen. So I changed it recently to Apple and Orange Line, because I like apples and oranges and all that, but comparing apples and oranges, but I thought the name was kind of catchy, and I may move from the Northwest where we grow apples down to Florida where they grow oranges. So that's where that came from. But anyway, so that's, I got to do that. Oh, the other thing is, while I was in Texas, is another hobby or interest I have and that I want to develop more is sailing. And I've done sailing. I've done some sailing. You did camps and stuff where we did sailing. We had one camp I went to in high school. We had really nice like laser sailboats and out on salt water, and it was just really awesome. That was up in Canada, where I went to a camp up in Malibu Club up in Canada. And that was a really fun experience up there. And so, but I've sailed with people on all kinds of boats, big and small, but it's something I'm interested in, maybe buy a sailboat at some point here. And so I went and took a sailing course. I wanted to get certified in sailing, and so I went and got a certificate that says I know how to sail now. And I thought it might help me with insurance, and if I rent a boat or if I buy a boat, I thought it might help me out there. So it was a lot of fun. I met some had really cool people in my class. My instructor was awesome. He was like 90, and he was out there with us sailing, and just, oh man, he was like the salty old sea dog too. It was funny, but we had a great time. I had half of my class were people were foreign, not from the United States, and so that was really really interesting getting to know them, and I've been keeping in touch with them, and we're planning a sail trip coming up. So this is the kind of stuff I want to do this year. But train wise, I was going to try to hit a train show. There's one in Portland, Oregon, and I think it's canceled now. And I was actually thinking about taking Amtrak to go to the show, and so I thought that'd be kind of fun, but I don't know that it's going to work out. But I think they canceled it because of COVID and all that. But the funny thing is, have a true confession here. I have never been to a train show, and not only that, I really don't know any other people that are into Lionel, like or O Gauge. I have a friend from childhood who also had HO trains and always was into HO, and we used to play with my trains, and we'd play with his HOs and stuff, and he's still into it, and he collects a lot of other trains as well. He's got two rail O scale and G and all kinds of stuff. He's much more into trains than me, but we enjoy talking about it and still keep up on all that together. But outside of that, like my dad had a friend who had a big HO layout in his house, and when I was a kid though, like I had friends come over and people were like, they'd see my trains. It was funny. My trains were right at the bottom of the stairs when you went down into our basement. They were just like kind of kitty corner from the bottom of the stairs, and people would come down the stairs. People had never been to my house before. They'd walk down the stairs and they're like, "Whoa, what's this?" And they're trains. Wow, cool. Show me how these work. And like they had never seen trains before. Most of them, or they maybe they had some kind of little train set when they were a kid, but they didn't have it anymore. And so, like one of my adult friends now is probably 10 years older, and he had Lionel when he was a kid, but his parents got rid of him when they were, like when they were in high school or after they left. So they don't have them anymore, but we've gone and looked at them. We've gone to train stores before, but outside of that, I really don't know anybody else that's into Lionel. And there was a hobby store in my hometown that closed a few years ago. And I used to talk to them and I'd say, you guys should like host like a Lionel group thing, not necessarily a club, but just kind of host a thing for, people that are into Lionel or HO or G or, they had everything N, Z, they had the whole gamut. But and they were like, oh yeah, well, we don't really have time for that. I'm like, well, and then they went out of business. But they could have been the headquarters for that, and they had a fair amount of stuff in inventory, but both Lionel, MTH, and O Gauge, and then they had like all the others too, and they had some nice display cases, and they had a whole section of their store, which was quite a large store, and it was like a warehouse, and they had a lot of stuff, but they just they didn't really market it very well, and it's unfortunate, but it's kind of it's kind of what we've seen across the hobby and the industry. There's people like you look at Train World or any of the big outfits, and they're so great at marketing, and they create so much excitement about it that they get people coming in and buying the starter sets for their kids, but they get people coming back and buying the expensive stuff too. So. And then the thing is, I've never been to a train show, and there aren't any in my hometown or anywhere near where I live. The nearest train store to me is in Seattle, which is realistically it's almost 3 hours from my house. It's a good 2.5 hours for sure, but traffic and everything else, construction. There's always construction, so it's quite a ways away. So I have to go there when I'm there, but. So there's just nobody that I know of in my hometown. I'm not even sure how to find anybody in my area, even in the region. Even if they were an hour away, it would be awesome to just go see somebody's layout or go, just hang out and talk about trains with real people in person with actual live people. But that's one thing I really enjoy about like the OGR forum and YouTube and social media and all that is that you do get to see people that are really into the hobby and people that are, way more into it than me. And I've learned so much that way. And, one thing I think there's a consistent theme everybody says is that, it's kind of about the trains, but it's more about the people. And so you build friendships with people that share your interests and hobbies and things. And so that's cool. And something I want to do, I was hoping to go to York this past year, but it didn't work out. And so maybe this year I can get there in October. And it just so happens that the U.S. Sailboat Show is in Annapolis, Maryland, the weekend before. It ends on like Monday, and then York, I think, starts on Thursday. So I could probably go to D.C. or New York or somewhere, maybe go to Train World and check that out. And Yeah, the other thing, I'd like to see that New Jersey high railers. Maybe I could work that in there somewhere. And then there's like Strasbourg, rail trains and stuff. So that would be a really fun trip this fall, this coming fall, almost a year away. But rail fanning, some things for the channel. I did what I called the Off the Rail series. Episode 1 was on Christmas trolley. And I have some more videos on the trolleys and the electric trains that used to run in my hometown. They used to haul fruit from the apple orchards into the warehouses, and then from the warehouses down to the main line. They would eventually get onto the Union Pacific. And although we had the Northern Pacific ran through here, and it's now Burlington Northern Santa Fe, but the short line was actually operated by Union Pacific, and they would get down to another area where Union Pacific ran, and link up the fresh fruit and get it to market all across the country. So I've got some upcoming videos on that whole system. It's really cool. And when I was a kid, up until about the time I was starting to drive, there were trains operating on the city streets, and a lot of the main streets in town had railroad tracks that ran right down the middle of the road, and then they would go to make a turn onto another busy street, and they would cut the corner. So the tracks were kind of all over the place on the roads, and people got caught up in them and on bicycles. And I never did that, but I did have a friend on a moped that she got caught up on a track, and she burned, her whole side of her body was burned, and still, she's got scars to show for it. But sometimes people didn't get out of the way, but most people in those days knew you don't mess with a train. There's a train coming down the middle of the road, you get out of the way, and everybody you'd see all the cars parting like the parting of the sea. And I remember being like in my mom's station wagon, and we would move out of the way, and this big train would come by, and you could feel the weight of the train coming clunk 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 clunk, down the road, and you could feel it. The car was shaking, and it was pretty cool. But I've got some videos coming up on that. I've got one coming up on the Merci train, which was the gift from France and Italy back to the United States after the friendship train and the French ship that took all the goods and food and supplies and clothing and everything over after World War II. And so they sent 48 plus one car, boxcars that were all decorated up to each state and at the time. And the one for Washington is in my hometown, and so I went and did a video on that, and it's all just about ready. I'll release that pretty soon. And then I've got one at my grandfather's ice plant, where it was. It's not there anymore, but the buildings are still there. They're part of an apple business now. They store apples and stuff in there, or fresh fruit. So got those. I've got some more kind of rail fanning type videos like that, more local history and rail related things in my hometown and area. And part of the reason I'm doing those is, one, I want to share them with people, because there isn't a lot of videos about that out there. But also, I want to build a layout that's reflective of my childhood, my growing up, and in my hometown. And so I want to have good documentation of the buildings and the like the trolley barn and the way the railroad, the tracks and everything are set up in the streets and stuff. I want to try to have some documentation of that, so when I go to do my layout, I want to be able to try to recreate that with my scenery and buildings and track layout and stuff. So I want to try to do that as much as I can. It won't be perfect or prototypical to the max, but that's my plan. So never been to a train show, don't really know any Lionel operators, people that model railroaders. So that's something I'd like to change this year, and go out and take some tourist trains, do some more YouTube content. I want to improve my editing for sure, and consistent posting. I want to post at least once a week, and I've been trying to post twice a week, and I hadn't posted anything for a long time, and so all my metrics and everything are kind of funny to look at. Everything's up 5,000%, and I've had a 2,600% increase in subscribers and stuff. I went from like 2 subscribers to 28 or 29 now in a couple weeks. So I've been posting now for a month or two. I can't remember when I started, but I want to definitely increase that. I've got some older videos that are 7 or 8 years old now, and one of them just hit 100 views. A couple of them are about 1,000. So I don't really care. I don't really care about subscribers or viewers, but I mean, I care about the viewers, but I don't care how many views I get. I want to try to put out good content that'll be there for a long time, and people that are looking for it will find it. And so that's kind of my goal with the whole thing, is just to share some things, because so much of the railroading and everything is so centered around the Northeast and the eastern, say Chicago to New York and down the East Coast. And so, most of the trains that are produced are from old railroads in those areas. And there's the big ones, Union Pacific and Burlington Northern, Santa Fe, all that, but Northern Pacific. But there isn't a lot of local stuff produced certainly not in model railroading. Like, we've got this really cool trolley system here. And I think, MTH or whoever's doing their trolleys now, or Lionel, somebody should produce a trolley for our own system here, because it's an operating system. And every time they do the tourist trolleys, they run all summer, and they run on special occasions like Halloween and Christmas. They run for a couple weeks on Christmas. And every time I go and check them out, or go just go look at them, I just like to watch them go down the street. And they're packed full. There's a lot of people come from all over. People travel. I know people travel from around the world to come check out these trolleys and the electric locomotive. They have a GE steeple locomotive, and they get that out load up some boxcars and put that out on the street, a few times a year. And there's people come from all over the place to photograph them. There's a guy in Scotland who's modeled that in HO. And it's really amazing, like super detailed. I can't remember his name, but I'll try to put a link to it on this video. But so that's really what I want to do this year. Personally, I want to do more travel and all that. Usually I make New Year's resolutions of, exercise and stuff, but I've actually been doing that pretty well. I just went and shoveled snow for an hour. So that's my exercise for today. But no, I've mostly been eating and exercising pretty well. So the other big thing I had this last year was I lost my eyesight. I went blind, and I had about a year ago, around the time my mom died, I was having some problems, and I was scheduled for surgery, and it got postponed and rescheduled a whole bunch of times. And finally, after almost a year, it happened in October, and I was completely blind in my right eye, and I thought my left eye was better, but as soon as they did the surgery on my right eye, I realized how horrible my left eye was. So that did slow me down a little bit in the fall. Fortunately, after I'd done all my traveling and stuff, and I mean, I could see a mountain off in the distance and stuff, but I couldn't read even with glasses. I couldn't read, and my vision is now 20/20, except trying to read, especially after wearing glasses. Trying to read, I can't. But I can read. I can read everything on this piece of paper. I can read my phone or my iPad or whatever. I can read it all. But I got to the point where I could not read my phone or computer, anything I couldn't see the text on the computer, for example. It was gone. So I was in big trouble, and if I were thankful about anything, it would be that what a great time to be alive. I mean, eye surgery's been around a long time, but if I was born, if I was in my great grandparents' era, I mean, I would have been probably out of work. I would have been in trouble, because I mean, not being able to see is a big problem. And I got a little taste of it, and I was really lucky that it was fairly easy fix. They weren't sure about my right eye, what they were going to be able to do, but they did a great job. I still have to have another procedure in a month on my eyes, but I'll have a laser surgery then, but it'll be pretty simple. And then I should be, good to go. But I was within 2 weeks I had surgery 2 weeks apart, and within 2 weeks after those, I was 20/20 in both eyes. And it was stunning. And just to go from 1970s television in a smoke-filled room to 4K HD 3D TV in a couple of days, a couple of weeks, was just stunning. And to be able to look out and see the world, which is there's a mountain behind me right now, but you can't see it because it's foggy and snowy. But I guarantee it's snowy up there. But I can't see that right now. No, I don't see any of it, but it's right It's right there. And so there's a lake out here, and then there's a mountain on the other side of the lake. It's really what we call a hill, but most people would call it a mountain. But it's about 1,000 feet straight up, and then goes out further out that way. But and then goes into the actual big mountains right out here. But Mount Rainier is right there, but you can't see it. So anyway, that's my plan, kind of for personal and for the channel. I just want to keep putting out videos. I've got about another dozen or so MPC series videos coming up, and that's been it's just been a lot of fun for me to look at my old trains, having not seen them in so long, be able to, it's like seeing an old friend. And so it's been really cool, and I appreciate all the comments and support. GFW, George and Wally and OG. I really appreciate those guys. They've hyped my channel for me. That's really awesome. Like, what great friends who I've never met, but I look forward to meeting them at York maybe. And I've chatted with a lot of other people on YouTube, back and forth, other YouTube content creators, and so that's cool. I look forward to meeting some train YouTubers. This past summer, I met 3 of my favorite aviation YouTubers. So that was really cool. I follow quite a few. I watch train videos, I watch sailing videos, and I watch aviation. Did I say aviation, trains, and sailing? That's pretty much most of my YouTube, and I hardly watch any actual TV anymore. But so I got to meet, if you're into aviation, I got to meet Aviation 101, Josh, and 310 pilot and his wife, Kevin and Jamie. And then probably the biggest, or at least one of the biggest aviation YouTubers, is Steve-O One Knievo. And it was really cool meeting all of them. I actually saw a few others in person, but Blanco Lirio is a really good channel. He covers a lot of stuff. He's a guy he would probably be into trains, I'm gonna guess, because a lot of pilots are into motorcycles, guns, trains. It seems to be kind of a theme that people that are into that. But he was really cool to meet. But I got to spend a little bit of time talking to the others, and if you're into aviation or anything, those are really good YouTube channels. And I want to try to model this channel on that, more on kind of the way they do their videos. And so they're really cool channels, and it was really cool to meet like YouTubers in person, because I've been watching some of those channels for a long time, and 7, 8, 10 years or something, and it was just really funny to just meet somebody in person like that, because it's kind of like meeting a TV star or something, but a little bit different, a little bit more laid back and stuff. But that's what I like about YouTube, is that you can just find the content you want, and you can watch it, subscribe to that channel, and you can interact with people. If I leave a comment, a lot of times people write back, and we kind of go back and forth and share thoughts or ideas. And so that's one thing I really like about this medium. But it's I'd rather meet some train people in person too. And so I need to go to a train show, and I need to meet some Lionel people this year. So leave me any comments, ideas, thoughts, complaints, whatever, down below. Please smash the like and subscribe if you're interested in more. And you don't have to ring the notification bell. I usually don't do those, but the only time I do it is if somebody's going to have a live stream coming up. I usually set a notification for that, but it's a good feature if you don't want to miss a new video from your favorite channel. It's a good thing. So I appreciate the support and the interest especially in the MPC series that I've been working on. Like I said, I've got about a dozen more of those, and this is kind of a live recorded episode. I was going to I was going to do a live video, but then I realized, or live stream, but then I realized you have to have 50 subscribers, and I only have about 29. So when I get to 50 subscribers, watch out, I'm going to do a live video. But I might, but I'll do something. I think for 50, I'll do something. It seems so silly when people are having their 10,000 subscriber special, and here I'm getting all excited about 30. But it's good. I appreciate that people are interested in, if all I ever have is 30 subscribers, that's fine. I'll keep making videos. So I enjoy it and enjoy sharing it, and I appreciate the feedback. So I just want to take a final chance here to wish everybody a Happy New Year. I hope it's prosperous and safe, and and you reach all your goals and resolutions and all that. But one thing I was going to share, just real brief, if I can do anything briefly, is and like especially when I was younger and stuff, and in high school or college, I would write down all my goals. Sometimes I would type them up on a sheet and I'd post them on my bedroom, right by my bedroom door, and so I'd see them all the time. And almost every one of those goals I achieved on time. And after like college, I got my dream job after college. I went after that and got it, and things, after that I wanted to start my own business, and I did that. My goal was to start a business before I was 30. I did it when I think I was 28. So just kind of went after those things where you write down your goals. I put things in my phone, I just never see it again. It just goes into some data storage and I never see it. But I write stuff down on paper, and just for me personally, the process of going through and writing things down and scratching them out and thinking about them and editing and stuff, doing it on paper, even in my chicken scratch, it's a way for me to really commit things to memory and to go back and look and remind myself what my priorities are and what my goals are. And so when I do that, and I sometimes, like when I'm going to sleep or something, I'll lay in bed and I'll envision what it's going to be like to achieve that goal, like what it's going to feel like, what it's going to smell like, what it's going to look like, where I'm going to be, where how it's all going to play out. And the funny thing is that it never quite turns out quite the way I thought, but it always happens. So if you do that, if you you dream about your goals, you envision them, you write them down, you focus on them, you will achieve those goals. And it may turn out a little different than you thought it might. And the dream job you wanted may not turn out to be the dream job you thought it was going to be, but you can always achieve those goals. And so that's my little ranting advice. But so this time of year is a good time to just kind of, especially on a cold winter day, sit down, write some things down, reflect on the past year, envision the future of the next year coming up, and then do it again next year and see where you're at. But you'll be a lot further along on whether it's you're building a layout or getting finishing your education or getting a job. You'll be a lot further than you would have been if you didn't do those things. So it's important to do, but we all have to do it our own way. Everybody's kind of got their own style and their own method, and so I encourage you to figure out what works for you and do that. But keep chugging along, keep moving along. So anyway, it's been fun having the train set up under the tree here this year. I'm going to take it down and take the train apart there. I'm going to do some more. I've got this temporary table set up here. I'm going to do a little more with that, and then I'll put this all away. I'll put all my trains away because I've got to start preparing to move at some point this year. So I can't keep playing with the trains right now until I get moved. Then I can get a train layout set up. But anyway, I've rambled enough, and appreciate the forum and opportunity to talk to everybody. And I wish everybody a happy and safe and prosperous New Year 2022. How did that happen? 2022.